The human lay awake in his small room, staring at the ceiling. The night was heavy and quiet, but something in the air felt different. He had been living in this alien mansion for months, yet tonight, his heart refused to calm. The clock showed midnight, and he turned on his side, hoping sleep would finally come. But then, he heard it. Soft footsteps outside his door, slow and careful, not the normal sound of the house. His breath caught in his throat. At first he thought it was only the wind moving across the hall, but the rhythm was too steady, too real. His body froze, waiting, listening. The door creaked open with a faint groan. A shadow slipped inside, moving like it carried a secret. The human's eyes adjusted to the dim light, and he saw her, the alien maid who worked in the mansion. She was small and delicate, her silver eyes glowing faintly in the dark. Her steps were cautious, but her chest rose and fell fast, as if she feared being caught. She didn't notice him awake at first. She looked around the room, her gaze sharp and searching. Then her eyes landed on the floor and her lips parted slightly. She took another step forward, whispering something in her own alien tongue. It sounded like a prayer, or maybe a warning. The human sat up slowly, his bed creaked, and the maid jumped as if struck. Her eyes locked onto his, wide with shock. She wasn't supposed to be here. That much was clear. "Why are you in my room?" he asked in a low voice, careful not to sound harsh. The maid trembled, clutching the edge of her dress. I should not be here," she whispered. Her words were broken, but her tone was filled with fear. "Something called me." "Called you?" he repeated, frowning. He glanced around his room. Nothing was out of place, just his desk, his chair, his simple belongings. Yet the maid's eyes were fixed on the floorboards, as if she saw something he did not. Then he noticed it too. A faint glow, a line of light spreading like veins across the wooden floor. His breath caught again. The glow was weak, but real, running beneath his bed. His heart raced. "What is that?" The maid shook her head quickly. "No, it cannot be," she whispered. Her voice trembled more with every word. "This should never wake, not for a human." The human pushed his blanket aside and placed his feet on the floor. The glowing lines pulsed as if they reacted to his presence. The maid gasped, covering her mouth. Her silver eyes reflected both awe and terror. "Tell me what this is," he demanded softly, trying to control his voice. She stepped back, shaking, her knees bent as if she might collapse. "It is forbidden," she whispered. "If others know, you will be taken. Both of us will be punished." The glow spread wider, climbing the walls. The air grew heavy, charged with something old and powerful. A low hum vibrated through the room, not from any machine but from the house itself. The human felt it in his bones, as if the mansion itself was alive. The maid clutched her chest, her breathing uneven. "I must leave," she said quickly. "I should not have come. I should not have seen this." But her legs would not move. She stood frozen, her wide eyes locked on the glowing mark now forming beneath the human's feet. It was a symbol, sharp and strange, unlike anything he had ever seen. The human stepped closer to her. His shadow fell across her trembling form. "You know what this is, don't you?" he asked. Tears gathered in her glowing eyes. She lowered her head, unable to speak, yet her silence was an answer in itself. At that moment, the glow flared brighter, filling the room with a blinding light. The maid gasped and stumbled back. She raised her hand to shield her face, but still stared at him, and what she saw left her completely speechless. The room still glowed faintly after the burst of light. The human sat frozen on the edge of his bed, his heart racing. The alien maid stood near the door, her small hands shaking as if she carried a weight too heavy to bear. Neither of them spoke for a long moment. Only the quiet hum of the glowing lines filled the air. Finally, the human broke the silence. "What just happened?" he asked in a low voice. His tone was not angry, but sharp with demand. He wanted answers. The maid lowered her head, her silver hair falling over her face. I was sent here to clean, to serve, but also to watch," she whispered. Her words trembled. "They told me humans could never wake the ruins. They told me the stories were only myths. Yet tonight, the stories became real." The human frowned. "Ruins? What ruins?" She stepped forward carefully, her feet moving as if each step weighed her down. She pointed to the glowing lines under his bed. "This house is not a house. It was built on old bones of a fallen city. My people buried it because it carried danger and power. But you have woken it." He looked down at the strange marks. They pulsed with a soft rhythm, almost like a heartbeat. His skin prickled. He felt connected to it somehow. "Why me?" he asked, his voice quieter now. "I'm not one of you. I don't even understand this place." The maid clasped her trembling hands together. "That is why it should not be. Humans were never meant to bear the mark," she said. Her eyes glistened as if she held back tears. "If the council finds out, they will come. They will take you away, and I will be punished for failing my duty. The human stared at her. Duty. She nodded slowly. I am not only a maid, she whispered. I was placed here as a watcher. My task was to make sure the human in this house never touched what lay beneath it. I was supposed to report any strange sign, but now, Odd is too late. The word struck him like a stone. She was never just a servant cleaning halls and carrying trays. She had been guarding him, spying maybe, protecting too. He could not tell which. Then why didn't you report it now? He asked, leaning closer. His eyes searched hers. Her lips trembled. She looked away. Because, she whispered, her voice breaking. Because I do not want them to take you. I do not want them to kill you. You are different. The human's chest tightened. He didn't know why her words carried such weight. He wanted to ask what she meant, but the glow under the bed grew stronger, spreading further across the floorboards. The hum deepened, filling the room with a strange vibration. The maid gasped and backed away, clutching the wall. It is waking, she cried softly. The chamber below. It stirs. If it opens, we will not be safe. Then tell me how to stop it, he said firmly, standing to his feet. His hands were clenched, his jaw tight. She shook her head. You cannot stop it. Only the one chosen by the mark can control it, and the mark is now on you. The human lifted his sleeve and looked at his arm. His skin burned faintly where a faint symbol glowed. It had appeared the night before without warning. He thought it was just imagination, but now the maid's reaction confirmed it was real. He swallowed hard. So, what do I do? Her eyes softened, though her body still shook. You must hide, she whispered. You must pretend you saw nothing. You must not let anyone know. Promise me, human. Promise me you will stay silent. The human hesitated. His heart pounded. Could he really ignore what was happening? Could he pretend nothing stirred below this house? The glow pulsed again, stronger, almost like it was listening to them. The maid stepped closer, her small hands clutching the edge of his sleeve. If they discover you, if they over me, we will both be destroyed, she whispered. Her silver eyes locked onto his, desperate, pleading, please, promise me. He opened his mouth to answer, but the floor suddenly shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. The glowing lines flared brighter than ever before. A crack split across the floorboards, and a gust of cold air rushed out, carrying a sound, a whisper, ancient and chilling. Both of them froze, staring at the crack. The maid's face went pale. She clutched his arm tightly, whispering words in her alien tongue. Her voice trembled like she was praying. The human felt his throat go dry. The whisper grew clearer, shaping into his name. It was calling him, not her, not anyone else. Him. The maid's lips parted in horror. She turned to him, her voice trembling. It has chosen you, she whispered. The air went heavy. The glow spread to the walls, and the house itself seemed to breathe. The human stood there, frozen between fear and fate, while the maid clung to him, speechless. The room was alive with strange light. The walls glowed faintly, and the crack on the floor pulsed like a beating heart. The human stood still, trying to steady his breath, while the maid clung to his arm, her silver eyes filled with terror. The whisper came again, clearer this time. It spoke his name, not in human tongue, but somehow he understood. It echoed in his mind, soft yet powerful. His chest tightened as if something unseen had reached inside him. What does it want? He asked in a strained voice. His throat felt dry. The maid shook her head, her hands trembling. The house is not just walls and stone, she whispered. It remembers, it waits. Only the air can wake it, and it thinks you are that air. He stared at her, confused. Air? I'm no air. I'm just a man. I don't belong to your people. Her lips pressed tight. Her voice shook as she replied. The ruins do not care who you think you are. They see only the mark. The mark chose you. That means the house will obey you, or destroy you if you resist. The human stepped back from the glowing crack, but the whisper followed. It grew louder, more insistent. He pressed his palms to his ears, but the sound was not coming from outside. It was inside his head. The maid pulled him toward the door. We must go now, she begged. If you stay here longer, it will bind to you completely. You will never escape. But he dug his heels into the floor. No, he said firmly. His voice was rough, but his eyes burned with determination. I need to know what this is. I need to know why it's calling me. She looked at him with disbelief. Her body trembled. Do you not understand? She cried softly. If you touch what lies below, the council will sense it. They will come, and once they come, we are finished. Her words carried fear, but also something deeper, a hidden truth she had not yet spoken. He could see it in her eyes, something she was still hiding. The house creaked, the sound of wood and stone groaning under a weight that was not real. The walls shimmered faintly, and the air grew colder. The human felt the pull again, an invisible hand tugging at his very soul. He clenched his fists, resisting the urge to step closer to the crack. Then, a strange thing happened. A symbol carved itself into the wall before their eyes, glowing faintly with golden light. It was the same shape that had appeared on his arm the night before. The maid gasped, covering her mouth. "It recognizes you," she whispered. Her voice broke with awe and fear. "No human has ever been recognized, not in all our history." The human turned his gaze to her. "So what does that make me?" Her lips trembled. She bowed her head, whispering softly, "It makes you dangerous." The word echoed in his mind. Dangerous. He looked back at the glowing mark, his pulse racing. He had never asked for this, never wanted this, yet the house seemed to want him more too. And he wanted freedom. The whisper filled his head again, not just calling his name, but speaking words he didn't know, yet somehow he understood. "Descend," it told him. "Descend to the chamber." His body stiffened. He glanced at the crack and his feet twitched as if they longed to obey. The maid pulled on his arm, desperate. "Don't listen, please, don't listen. If you answer, you will be lost." He looked at her, her eyes wet with tears, her face pale. He could see the fear she carried was not only for herself but for him. She was afraid of losing him to something neither of them could control. The house groaned again, louder this time. A gust of cold air blew from the crack, carrying dust and a scent of earth long buried. The human shivered, but deep inside, something stirred, something that wanted to follow the voice. The maid pressed herself against him, clutching his sleeve. "Please," she whispered, her voice barely more than a breath. "Come away from this place. If you love your life, if you value mine, you must not go further." Her words sank deep into him. For a moment, he wavered. His heart told him to listen to her, to turn away. But the whisper returned, stronger, almost angry now, demanding he descend. The glowing mark on his arm burned hot. He winced, gripping it with his other hand. The maid gasped, staring at the firelight glow under his skin. "It binds you already," she cried. "The more you resist, the stronger it will grow." He clenched his jaw. His voice was firm, though his heart pounded. "Then maybe resisting isn't the answer." She stared at him in shock. "You cannot mean—" He stepped closer to the crack, ignoring her trembling hand on his arm. His shadow stretched across the glowing floor as the whisper grew louder than ever. The maid's voice shook with horror. "If you go down there, human, there will be no turning back." The glow spread wider across the walls, filling the room with a strange golden fire. The human raised his arm, staring at the burning symbol beneath his skin. It pulsed in rhythm with the light on the floor, as if his body and the house were connected. He swallowed hard, trying to steady his breath, but the mark only grew brighter. The maid covered her mouth, her silver eyes wide with fear. She whispered in her alien tongue, words that sounded like prayers or curses. Finally, she dropped to her knees, trembling. "No, it cannot be. This is the mark of the lost heir." Her words struck him with confusion. He frowned, his voice sharp. "Heir? What heir? I am no heir." She shook her head quickly. "This mark belongs only to the royal blood of my people," she whispered. "It was said the lost heir would return one day to claim the throne, but that throne was sealed long ago, buried beneath ruins. It should never appear on a human, never." The human looked again at his arm. His skin glowed as though fire lived inside him. The burning was not painful, but heavy. It felt alive. He muttered under his breath, "This has to be a mistake." The maid lifted her tear-filled eyes to him. "No, there are no mistakes with the mark. It chooses. And once it chooses, there is no escape. You belong to it now. You belong to destiny." He shook his head in disbelief. "No, I don't belong to anyone's destiny. I came here for work, for peace, not to play some royal game." The maid lowered her gaze, her voice breaking. "If the council learns of this, they will come for you. They will not ask questions. They will take you away. The mark is both a crown and a curse." The house trembled again, a deep groan echoing through the walls. Dust rained down from the ceiling. The human clenched his fists, refusing to step back. His voice was firm. "Tell me what this mark means. Tell me everything." The maid hesitated, her lips pressed tight, her body shook. "The mark was forbidden to even speak of," she whispered. "It belonged to the first rulers, the ones who commanded the power of the house. They vanished, leaving only ruins. The council buried their story. They feared the heir would return and challenge them. That is why the mark is forbidden. That is why anyone who carries it is hunted." The whisper thundered. The human's heart pounded. The whisper returned in his head, calling his name, urging him to descend. He pressed his palm against the glowing mark, his voice low. "Why me?" The maid stood slowly, her face pale as moonlight. "Because fate is cruel," she said softly. "Because even if you do not want it, the mark wants you." He stared at her, trying to read the truth in her trembling eyes. For the first time, he saw her not as a servant, but as someone carrying secrets too heavy for her small frame. She had been placed in this house not just to clean, but to guard him, to keep watch for the very thing now happening. The glow surged suddenly, filling the entire room with blinding light. The maid cried out, shielding her eyes. The human staggered back, but the mark on his arm burned hotter, pulling him toward the crack. His knees bent against his will, as if invisible chains dragged him forward. "No!" the maid shouted, running to him. She grabbed his arm, pulling him back with all her strength. "Do not answer it. Do not give in. Once you step into that chamber, you can never return as you are now." The human clenched his jaw, fighting the pull. His breath came heavy, his voice strained. "If I don't face it, will it stop?" Her silence was answer enough. The mark pulsed harder, brighter, almost angry. The whisper in his head became a roar, demanding, commanding. The maid's tears streamed down her face. "I was told to report if this ever happened," she admitted in a trembling voice. "But I cannot. If I tell them, they will kill you, and I—" She lowered her head, whispering so soft it almost vanished. "I cannot let them take you." Her words stunned him, even as the mark burned hotter. He looked at her trembling form, her loyalty, her fear. For a moment his heart softened. The floor split wider, revealing a spiral staircase descending into darkness. The whisper boomed, louder, shaking his very bones. The maid gripped his arm tighter, her voice shaking. "Please do not go down there." The human stared at the glowing stairs, then at the maid. His mind warred between fear, curiosity, and a strange pull he could not resist. The mark flared with one last violent pulse. The maid fell to her knees, unable to speak, and the human knew the choice could no longer be delayed. The night stretched long. The human sat on the edge of his bed, staring at the glowing cracks now dimmed back into silence. The air was heavy as if the house itself had gone back to sleep. Yet his arm still burned faintly, the forbidden mark pulsing like a hidden fire. Beside him, the maid sat trembling. Her silver eyes were swollen from tears. She had not moved since the light faded. She looked small, fragile, as if the weight of what she carried was too much for her body. The first gray light of dawn crept through the window, painting the walls with pale shadows. The human turned to her, his voice rough from the long silence. "You owe me the truth now. No more secrets." The maid lowered her gaze, her lips parted, but no words came. Finally she whispered, "I was never just a maid." He narrowed his eyes. "I already guessed that," he said quietly. "But what are you really?" She gripped the fabric of her dress, her knuckles turned white. "I was sent here by the council, not to serve you, but to watch you, to make sure this house never woke, to report if anything stirred." She paused, her voice breaking. "But I did not expect you to be the one who woke it." His heart sank. He leaned closer, his voice sharp. "So you were spying on me this whole time?" Her eyes filled again with tears. She shook her head quickly. "At first, yes, I was told to observe you, to see if the mark would ever show. But as the days passed, I saw you were kind. You treated me like a person, not a servant, and my heart changed. I could not see you as just a duty anymore." The human studied her trembling form. A mixture of anger and pity battled inside him. She had been placed here to betray him, yet now she cried because she couldn't. She continued, her voice softer. "If I tell them what happened tonight, they will take you. They will lock you in chains, study you, and then kill you if they cannot control the mark. And me. They will kill me too for failing my orders." He clenched his fists. His voice was steady but heavy. "So you're saying we're both trapped?" She nodded slowly. "Yes, trapped by fate," she whispered. "But maybe we can escape it." The morning sun grew brighter, spilling light across the strange glowing lines on the floor. The human looked at them with unease. "Why does this mark bind me?" he asked. "Why me?" The maid's voice trembled. "Long ago, the royal family of my people ruled with the power of this house. They vanished, leaving no heirs. The council took control. But there was a prophecy that one day the house would awaken for the true heir, the one with the mark." She looked up at him with fear. That heir was never meant to be human. The words hung heavy in the room. The human stood, pacing slowly, his voice low. "So either I am some mistake, or I am the very thing your council fears." The maid rose to her feet, her small frame shaking. "If they discover this, they will do anything to stop you. They fear the throne more than anything. They will kill you before they let you rise." He turned sharply to her, his jaw tight. "And what about you? What do you want?" Her lips trembled. She stepped closer, her voice a whisper. "I want to protect you." The human blinked, stunned. He had expected betrayal, but instead, he saw sincerity in her eyes. She lowered her head, whispering again, "I cannot explain why, but I cannot hand you to them. I will lie. I will risk my life, but you must promise me one thing. Sir, do not touch the chamber again. His chest tightened. He wanted to believe her. He wanted to trust her. But the mark pulsed hotter, stronger, as if mocking their conversation. He knew the house was not finished with him. The maid reached for his arm, her hands trembling as they brushed over the glowing mark. Please, she begged, let us pretend none of this happened. Let us live as if the ruins are still asleep, just for a little longer. But before he could answer, the floor groaned beneath them. A deep vibration shook the house. The glow sparked again, brighter than before. The maid's face went pale. Her voice broke. It is too late. The house does not listen to lies. It has already chosen you. The human clenched his fists as the dawn light mixed with the golden glow of the ruins. His heart thundered in his chest. He looked at her and whispered, then hiding is no longer an option. The day passed in restless silence. The human tried to distract himself with small tasks, but his thoughts always returned to the mark burning faintly on his arm. The maid kept close to him, her movements quiet, her eyes filled with fear. Neither spoke much, but both knew something was coming. When night fell again, the house grew colder. The glowing cracks on the floor had dimmed, but the hum of power still lingered in the air. The human lay awake, listening. His heart pounded with unease. The maid sat near the door, her silver eyes staring into the dark hallway beyond. Then, faintly, a sound echoed outside. Soft whispers, like voices carried by the wind. The maid stiffened, her small frame trembling. They are here, she whispered. Her voice cracked. They must have felt the awakening. The human pushed himself up quickly. Who is here? She swallowed hard. Agents of the council, she said in a hushed voice. They hunt the mark. They must have come to take you. His chest tightened. He moved to the window, peering into the darkness beyond. In the courtyard, shadows moved, tall figures cloaked in black. Their footsteps made no sound, but their presence pressed heavy on the air. The maid grabbed his arm, her grip surprisingly strong. We must run, she urged. If they find you, they will not ask questions. They will chain you. They will kill you. But the human shook his head firmly. No, I won't run. If they want me, they'll have to face me. Her silver eyes widened with disbelief. You don't understand. These are not simple soldiers. They are hunters, trained to kill. I cannot fight them alone. He placed a hand on her shoulder, steadying her trembling form. Then you won't be alone, he said. His voice was calm, but inside his blood raced. The whispers outside grew louder. The cloaked figures stopped at the front of the house. Their voices shifted into a strange chant. The air thickened, the walls vibrated. The maid gasped, clutching her chest. They are sealing the exits. They will trap us inside. The human cursed under his breath. He looked around, searching for an escape, but the glowing lines on the floor stirred again, stretching toward the hallway, guiding them deeper into the house. The maid's eyes widened as she saw the lines. The house. It wants to lead us, she whispered. It is showing the way. The human grabbed her hand. Then we follow. They moved quickly, the glowing lines beneath their feet lighting their path. The house groaned and shifted as if alive, guiding them through hidden corridors they had never seen before. Behind them, the cloaked figures entered, their shadows spilling across the walls. The maid's breathing grew fast, her grip tight on his hand. We cannot let them touch you, she whispered. If they bind you, it is over. They reached a heavy stone door at the end of the hall. The lines pulsed brighter. The human pressed his hand against the cold surface. The mark on his arm flared and the door shuddered open with a grinding sound. Beyond it lay a spiral staircase leading down. The air was colder, heavy with ancient dust. The whisper in his mind returned, urging him forward. The maid pulled back, shaking her head. If we go down, there is no return. The chamber below was sealed for a reason. But the sound of footsteps behind them grew closer. The cloaked voices echoed through the corridor. Surrender the marked one, they hissed. Their words were sharp, cold, inhuman. The human looked at the maid, her face pale with fear. He squeezed her hand firmly. We don't have a choice. The maid's lips trembled, but she nodded. Then I will protect you, even if it means fighting my own people. The human was stunned for a moment, but there was no time to question her. Together, they stepped into the stairwell. The heavy stone door closed behind them with a deep thud, sealing the path. As they descended, the whispers in his head grew louder, the mark on his arm burning hotter with every step. The maid clung to his side, her silver eyes darting into the shadows. Her small voice broke the silence. If the house accepts you, they will fear you, but if it rejects you, not even I can save you. The human's jaw tightened. His voice was steady. Then I'll make sure it accepts me. Above them, the shadows howled in anger, pounding at the sealed door. The house shook, but it held firm. Deep below, in the cold darkness, something waited. and the human knew that the real test was only beginning. The spiral staircase went deeper than they expected. Each step creaked with age, and dust clung to the walls like memories that refused to fade. The human kept one hand against the cold stone for balance, while his other hand gripped the maid's tightly. Her breathing was shaky, but she didn't let go. The mark on his arm glowed brighter the farther they descended, casting flickering light around them. "I see." A whisper in his mind no longer sounded like words but like emotion, pulling, calling, promising answers he never knew he wanted. The maid glanced back, her voice low. "This path hasn't been walked in centuries," she said. "No one alive knows what lies below." He gave a nod, though his chest felt heavy. "Then we'll find out together." At last, the stairs ended before a massive door made of something not quite stone, not quite metal. It pulsed gently, as if it were breathing. Lines of glowing gold circled its surface, shaped in patterns that matched the mark on his arm. The human stepped forward, lifting his hand without thinking. The moment his skin touched the door, it warmed. The mark flared, and the door began to shift. The stone melted into itself, curling back like smoke. Beyond it lay a vast chamber, silent and waiting. They stepped inside slowly. The room was circular, its walls carved with ancient symbols that glowed dimly. In the center stood a raised platform, upon which sat a throne of crystal and black stone. The human felt his knees weaken. He could not explain why, but the sight of the throne made his heart race. It felt familiar, like something from a dream. The maid's voice broke the silence. This is the seat of the first," she whispered. Her words trembled. It was the center of power. The last of the royal blood vanished from here. No one has seen it since. The throne pulsed once, as if sensing their presence. The human felt the pull again, deeper now, stronger. He took a step forward, then another. The maid reached out, grabbing his arm. "Wait," she pleaded. "If you sit upon that throne, the house will decide if you are worthy. If it accepts you, you will gain everything. But if it rejects you, it will consume you." He looked down at her. Her voice was shaking, but her eyes held something deeper, fear of losing him. "I have to know," he said gently. "If I don't sit, they will still come for me. We can't keep running." The maid stepped back, her hands shaking, and she whispered something in her own language, a final prayer. The human climbed the steps slowly. Each footstep echoed in the chamber like thunder. When he reached the top, he turned and looked down at her. She stood still, a single tear slipping down her cheek. He lowered himself into the throne. The moment he sat, the entire chamber erupted in light. The symbols on the walls flared bright. The air grew warm and heavy. The throne itself wrapped around him, as if it recognized its master. The mark on his arm blazed with golden fire burning through his sleeve, yet he felt no pain, only power. The maid gasped, falling to her knees. It accepted you," she whispered. Her voice broke. "You are the one. The house has chosen you." The whispers in his mind became clear, like voices from another world. They spoke not with words, but with knowledge. He saw flashes of war, of crowns, of betrayal, of power lost to time. And in that moment he understood he was not just chosen, he was claimed. Below the throne, hidden panels opened, revealing artifacts and weapons glowing with old energy. The chamber rumbled as if the house itself was waking from centuries of sleep. The maid climbed the steps, her hands trembling. She stopped before him, her eyes wide with awe. "What do we do now?" she asked. The human stood from the throne, the light still swirling around him. "Now we stop running," he said. "We fight back." Above them, the shadows howled. Their enemies would soon break through, but the house had returned to life. And for the first time, the human didn't feel afraid. He felt ready. The chamber shook violently. Dust rained down from the ceiling and cracks spread across the floor. The maid turned toward the stairwell, her voice tight with fear. "They're breaking through," she whispered. "The door won't hold them much longer." The human stood tall beside the ANC, enthroned, light still swirling around him. The glow of the mark on his arm pulsed with steady power. His eyes narrowed. "Let them come," he said. "I'm not running anymore." Suddenly, the wall across the room split open. Shadows poured in like black smoke, and figures stepped out, cloaked from head to toe, their faces hidden behind silver masks. The maid gasped. "The Shadow Enforcers," she said. "They serve only the High Council. They do not speak. They only obey." One of them raised a hand. The others spread out in a circle, surrounding the platform. A voice rang out, not from their mouths, but through the chamber itself, cold and sharp like a knife. "The human carries the forbidden mark. He must be removed." The human stood his ground. "I didn't ask for this mark," he said, "but now I have it, and I won't let you take me." The air around the enforcers shimmered. Dark energy flickered between their hands. They moved with perfect silence, like ghosts trained for death. The maid stepped in front of the human, her arms spread wide. "You will not touch him," she cried. Her voice shook, but her body didn't. The voice replied coldly, "You are a traitor. You will die beside him." The enforcers raised their hands, ready to strike, but then something changed. The ancient weapons below the throne pulsed to life, rising into the air on their own. Blades of energy, armor with strange symbols, a staff crowned with crystal. The mark on the human's arm blazed like the sun. One of the weapons floated toward him. The moment he touched it, the chamber roared with power. A shockwave exploded outward, throwing the enforcers back. Their dark cloaks scattered like ash, revealing armored figures beneath. Their masks cracked, and some cried out, not with rage, but with fear. "He has bonded with the throne," one of them said, his voice full of disbelief. "This cannot be." The maid turned, her eyes wide. "They're afraid," she whispered. "They never expected the house to accept you." The human took a step forward, holding the glowing staff. "Leave now." "Ert," he said, his voice echoing with power not his own, "or face the wrath of the first blood." The enforcers hesitated, then one of them raised a fist. "He is an outsider. He cannot rule. Destroy him." They rushed in, weapons drawn. The human raised the staff and slammed it into the ground. Light burst from the floor, forming a barrier around the throne. The enforcers hit it like waves against a wall, but it held firm. The maid raised her hands too. Her body glowed faintly. Her voice rang in the old tongue, and the room responded. Symbols on the walls lit up, ancient defenses awakening. Together they fought, one human, one alien, side by side. The staff sent bursts of energy toward the enemies, while the maid chanted, summoning light to push them back. One by one, the enforcers began to fall, not dead, but disarmed, defeated. Their shadows faded, their strength broken by the very house they sought to control. Finally, the last one dropped to his knees, staring up at the human. "If the house chose you, then the council will come next," he said, "and they will not stop." The human stepped down from the throne. "Let them come," he said. "This house has a voice now, and I will use it." The enforcers vanished into the shadows, retreating in silence. The chamber calmed, the air still humming with power. The maid turned to the human, her eyes full of emotion. "You just made enemies of the highest rulers in the galaxy," she said. He looked at her, his voice calm. "Then we'll need allies." She nodded slowly. "And a plan." The human stood tall beside her. The throne behind him glowed softly, no longer silent. The war hadn't begun yet, but the first battle had been won. Silence settled over the hidden chamber. The broken weapons of the shadow enforcers lay scattered, still glowing with fading energy. The human stood tall beside the throne, but his chest was tight. The mark on his arm had dimmed, but its warmth remained. The maid leaned against the wall, breathing heavily. Her body trembled, but she didn't fall. She had fought beside him without hesitation, risking everything. He walked over and knelt beside her. "Are you hurt?" he asked gently. She shook her head. "Just tired," she whispered. Her voice was weak but calm. "I've never used that much energy before." He sat beside her, the cool stone beneath them strangely comforting. For a moment they said nothing, only the hum of the chamber filled the air. Finally, she broke the silence. "You understand now, don't you?" she asked. "This was never about a mark. It was about power, fear, and control." He nodded slowly. "The council fears the truth," he said. "That the throne was never meant to stay silent. They built their rule on lies." The maid turned to him, her eyes filled with sadness. "You have a choice now," she whispered. "You can run, hide, live quietly in some corner of the galaxy. Or you can challenge them and risk everything." The human looked at the throne, glowing softly like a sleeping beast. "I'm tired of hiding," he said. "They already marked me for death. What more can they take?" She reached out and touched his hand. "They can take your soul," she said. "They can twist you, make you into something you're not. The throne gives power, yes, but it demands a price." He turned to her, studying her face. "And what about you?" he asked. "What price have you paid?" She smiled faintly, her eyes filled with emotion. "I was born into the lower caste," she said, "trained to obey, to serve. They told me I was nothing, then they gave me this mission. Watch the human, report if he awakens the ruins." Her voice grew softer. "But you were kind to me. You never treated me like a tool. That changed everything." He felt a lump in his throat. "You could have turned me in, why didn't you?" She looked down, her cheeks flushing. "Just because I chose you," she whispered. "Not the council, not the old laws, you." The chamber grew quiet again, but the weight between them had shifted. Then the throne pulsed once more. The whisper in the human's mind returned. It no longer begged, it offered. He heard its silent voice. Speak, and the house will obey. Rise, and the stars will kneel. The human stood slowly, his eyes locked onto the ancient symbols across the walls. If I choose this path, he said aloud, there's no turning back. The maid stood too, placing a hand over her chest. Then let me walk it with you. He reached for her hand, and for a moment, the mark on his arm glowed in sync with the glow in her chest. The house responded with a deep hum, like it accepted their bond. But then, a sound echoed through the stairwell above, a voice, clear and commanding. It was not a whisper, not a shadow. It was the voice of the High Council's herald. You have been found, the voice declared. By order of the 5 thrones, surrender now or face annihilation. The human looked at the maid. How did they get here so fast? She shook her head, fear returning to her eyes. They were already watching. The moment you took the throne, the signal went out. He clenched his fists. Then I choose, he said, his voice hard. I choose to fight, not just for me, but for everyone they silenced. The throne pulsed with golden light, rising slightly from the floor. A hidden doorway opened behind it, revealing a command room filled with ancient tech. The maid looked in awe. This is the heart of the house. He stepped forward, his voice firm. Then we take control. We won't wait for war to reach us. We will bring the truth to them. Above them, the enemy gathered, but below, a revolution had just begun. The hidden doorway led them into a vast chamber, ancient and glowing with forgotten power. Crystal panels floated mid-air, swirling with symbols neither of them had seen before. At the center of it all stood a command platform, shaped like a circle with a crown of light hovering above it. The human stepped forward, the mark on his arm glowing brighter with each step. The house responded to him, lights flickering on, walls shifting, screens awakening from centuries of sleep. The maid followed close behind, her silver eyes wide in wonder. This isn't just a house, she whispered. It's a fortress. A throne world buried beneath stone and silence. He turned to her, his voice calm but filled with purpose. And now, it belongs to us. Suddenly, the ancient throne behind them flared with golden fire. A voice echoed through the chamber, calm, deep, and full of wisdom. Blood has answered. Bond has been chosen. Rise, heir of the first crown. The crown of light floated toward the human. He stood still, not in fear, but in quiet acceptance. The moment it touched his head, a burst of golden energy shot outward, shaking the walls and echoing through the ruins above. Up in the shattered stairwell, the High Council's army stood frozen. They had felt the pulse, they had seen the light, and for the first time, they hesitated. Inside the chamber, the maid stared at the human, her lips parted, unable to speak. He stood there, no longer just a worker, no longer a stranger, but something greater. The golden crown hovered above him, not touching his hair, but bound to him like a second skin. You're truly the heir, she whispered. He turned to her, his eyes glowing with soft fire. I don't know how or why, he said, but this house knew me before I ever stepped inside. She took a step forward, reaching out as if unsure she was dreaming. The council will never allow this. They will come in full force, he nodded. Let them. I won't run anymore. The chamber shifted again, revealing a map of the stars on the floor. Glowing lines connected old territories. The house remembered everything. Every war, every betrayal, every crown stolen. The maid knelt before him, her voice trembling. You are the one they tried to erase, the name they burned from history. He moved toward her quickly, lifting her to her feet. No, I don't want worship, he said gently. I want you beside me, as you've always been, not as a servant, but as my equal. Tears welled in her eyes. She couldn't speak. Her lips moved, but no words came. Only a soft gasp escaped as she realized the bond between them was real. Then from above, a rumble echoed down the stairwell. The army had begun to descend. The house reacted, protective walls rising from the floor, weapons powering up. A voice from the system echoed calmly. Threat detected, preparing defense. The human turned to the maid. Are you still with me? She nodded, wiping her tears. To the end. Together, they stood on the command platform. The golden light surrounded them, symbols forming shields, weapons, and wings across the walls. As the enemies stormed the upper halls, they saw the throne rise through the ground like a mountain of light. At its center stood the crowned human, glowing like the morning sun. The maid stood beside him, her hands lifted, her voice summoning power from the very stones. The army froze, speechless. They had expected a frightened fugitive, not a king reborn. They had expected a weak servant girl, not a guardian of ancient force. And in that moment, when the golden light swallowed the sky and the ruins awakened fully, no one could speak. Not the soldiers, not the spies, not even the High Council. Only silence remained. The house had chosen, and its voice would be heard. Across every star,